If there were rankings for serial killers, then the collector from this horror film would surely be the king. The Wharton couple had just moved into their new home, but when they came back that evening, they suddenly discovered a strange redwood box in their bedroom. Larry thought the workers had forgotten to take it away, so when he walked over to check, he saw there was even a note placed on top of the box. Just then, a sudden sound came from inside, and Larry curiously opened the box.
Jesus, Coca-Cola!
Not long after, another villa welcomed new residents. Jewelry tycoon Michael and his family moved in. He hired a professional renovation team to work on the house and also asked locksmith Arkin to replace the front door lock. During the process, Arkin played house with Michael's younger daughter Hannah because he too had such an adorable daughter. While taking a break, Michael's elder daughter Jill borrowed a cigarette from him. And during their chat, Arkin learned that the family of 4 would be leaving for a vacation in Los Angeles that night. After finishing his work, Michael approached Arkin, who was about to leave and, pleased with the timely lock replacement, gave him not only the payment but also a tip. But when Arkin, happily holding his gift and modest earnings, went to meet his wife Lisa and daughter Cindy, he was met with disdain from Lisa. The reason was that Lisa owed a large gambling debt, and the debt collectors had set a final deadline, midnight tonight. If she didn't pay up, she would be taken and sold, which would drag their whole family into serious trouble. Hearing this, Arkin was furious, but solving the problem was the priority. He comforted his wife, telling her not to worry. He would gather the money before midnight. After much hesitation, he decided to return to his old trade, burglary, and his target was Michael's home. Because while changing the locks, Arkin accidentally discovered that Michael was a famous jewelry tycoon, and he clearly knew the exact location of the safe in the house. He had heard that there was a fist-sized ruby inside the safe, and since Michael's family was away on vacation tonight, it was clearly the perfect opportunity for him to make his move. Arkin immediately put his plan into action, sneaking quietly to the villa. A sound of chains dragging caught his attention. Suddenly, a large guard dog leapt at him from the shadows, biting him on the face, clearly left behind by Michael for security. Without wasting time, Arkin rushed to the front door, quickly unlocking it with professional skill. Familiar with the layout, he went straight to the room with the safe. He pulled out a stethoscope and began working on the safe, but then heard a strange noise from outside the door. He stopped and turned to check, but the sound quickly disappeared. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but as he focused again on opening the safe, he heard the sound of a key turning in the door downstairs, followed by footsteps coming upstairs. Worried that Michael's family had returned unexpectedly, Arkin immediately hid. He planned to slip out unnoticed, but when he reached the back door, he found 4 new locks mysteriously added, none of which he had installed. Just then, footsteps echoed from upstairs again. Realizing he couldn't get out for now, Arkin decided to risk it and return to the safe. But just as he was about to resume the heist, a heart-wrenching scream came from the ventilation duct. Someone was begging desperately. At this moment, Arkin finally realized that an uninvited guest might have entered Michael's home. Sure enough, as Arkin prepared to hide, he saw Michael, badly beaten and covered in wounds. Seeing Arkin, Michael angrily questioned why he was doing this to him.
Why are you doing this?
It turned out Michael thought it was Arkin who had harmed him, and he even grabbed a nearby golf club to fight back. But before he could swing, a trap was triggered. Michael was yanked up to the ceiling and violently slammed down to the floor. At that moment, a masked killer appeared and dragged him away. Seeing even the windows were sealed, Arkin realized things were far worse than he had imagined. He tried to call the police, but as soon as he picked up the phone, a steel needle hidden inside pierced his eardrum, leaving him in agonizing silence. Desperate to escape, he tried to break a window, but his hands got caught on hidden blades. Blood streamed from his palms, and though he wanted to scream, he forced himself to stay quiet to avoid attracting the killer's attention, painfully tearing his hands free, not daring to linger. He hurried off in search of an escape route, but almost triggered a tripwire rigged to cause instant death. Arkin cautiously twisted his neck to avoid it, then kept moving room to room, searching for a way out. Soon he heard approaching footsteps. The killer was getting closer, so he quietly slipped downstairs. There was a chandelier on the floor of the hall covered with sharp blades. It must have been the killer, who had just been setting up the ceiling trap. Seeing this, Arkin thought about pulling one off to defend himself, but each blade was tightly secured. Afraid of making noise, he didn't dare touch anything, continuing to look around. At that moment, he spotted a pair of scissors connected to another trap. Clearly, nothing in this house could be touched carelessly. Even downstairs, every room was rigged with deadly hazards. As soon as he entered one room, he got a cut. Thin wires crisscrossed the space. It wasn't just about walking into them. Even the slightest touch could slice skin open. So he turned and entered the next room, and luckily he didn't rush in because the floor was covered with giant bear traps. At the doorway, a fishing line was also hidden, connected to a heavy guillotine blade on the other end. Anyone stepping inside would be doomed to decapitation. After carefully stepping over the fishing line, he realized the first floor was far too dangerous. He planned to head back upstairs only to find the staircase covered in sharp screws. Just then, footsteps came from the stairs. With nowhere to hide, Arkin had no choice but to slip into the nearby basement. To his surprise, there he found Michael, barely clinging to life. Arkin quickly explained to Michael that he wasn't the killer and that he could help him escape. But first, Michael needed to tell him if there were any weapons in the house for self-defense. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Michael told him there was a gun in the safe and bullets in the bedside table. Before Arkin left, Michael asked him to check on his wife. At the bathtub in the next room, Arkin saw Victoria, tied up, with iron hooks piercing her eyes. Arkin carefully removed the cloth gag from her mouth. Victoria told Arkin that her daughter Hannah was hiding somewhere upstairs and begged him to find her and save her. Arkin promised to help, but he also needed Victoria's cooperation. He instructed her that after he left, she should scream as loudly as possible to lure the killer over. Only then would he have a chance to search for Hannah. Soon after, Victoria let out a heart-wrenching scream. Sure enough, this caught the killer's attention. As the killer entered the bathroom, Arkin seized the moment and slipped upstairs. But things didn't go so well for the couple trapped in the basement. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Arkin successfully opened the safe and found both the gun and the ruby. However, when he searched for the bullets, he realized the killer had already removed them. Suddenly, a knocking sound came from the wardrobe behind him. Wanting to check if Hannah was trapped inside, Arkin quickly approached. But inside the wardrobe, there was a large red trunk. The sound was coming from inside it. Without hesitation, Arkin opened the trunk, and to his shock, an old man crawled out. It was Larry, the man who had been taken at the beginning. Larry urged Arkin to get out of there quickly, because the one who had locked him up was a twisted killer known as the Collector, whose methods were extremely brutal and ruthless. The Collector only kills those he hasn't chosen. As for those he deems valuable, he keeps them locked inside trunks, raising them as bait to lure the next family into opening them. Then the Collector launches a surprise attack from the shadows, selects the next victim, and this endless cycle continues to repeat. Seeing Larry growing more agitated, Arkin quickly closed the trunk again, assuring him that he would return to rescue him after saving the others. As Arkin searched for a way out, he accidentally entered another room. Unaware, he stepped onto a floor coated with powerful adhesive. His feet were instantly stuck. Along with him, the family's cat was also trapped. With time running out, Arkin quickly untied his shoelaces, then grabbed some books nearby to use as stepping boards. But the noise alerted the Collector downstairs, who hurriedly prepared to check upstairs. Hearing the approaching footsteps, Arkin thought the killer was drawn by the cat's cries, so he grabbed the cat and tossed it away. Unexpectedly, there was another trap on the windowsill. As soon as the cat landed, it was instantly sliced in half by a blade. Arkin didn't dare dwell on it. He quickly used the book to cover his shoes and hid himself under the bed. When the Collector arrived, he only saw the cat's remains. Thinking the cat had accidentally triggered the trap, he didn't suspect anything and soon left. Arkin crawled out from under the bed, picked up 2 paper clips from the table, and quietly slipped out. While the Collector was busy inspecting a trunk in the next room, Arkin returned to the basement, hoping to rescue Michael and Victoria. But tragically, Michael had already been tortured to death by the Collector. With no choice, Arkin decided to focus on saving Victoria. Using the paper clips, Arkin skillfully unlocked the chains. But just as they were about to leave, Victoria caught sight of Michael's gruesome corpse and screamed in terror. In panic, she ran upstairs. At the critical moment, Arkin hid under a table as the Collector slowly approached him. Arkin braced for an attack, but luckily, the Collector was distracted by a wandering spider. He picked up the spider and took it outside. Once again, the Collector hadn't discovered Arkin. While the Collector was dealing with Victoria's body, Arkin ran to the bedroom, planning to pry off the boards on the window and escape. Suddenly, the sound of a car horn came from outside. It was Michael's elder daughter, Jill, returning with her boyfriend, Chad. Earlier that day, she had argued with her parents to avoid the vacation, and now she had brought Chad home. Arkin tried to warn them not to enter, but with the thunderstorm outside, they couldn't hear him. Jill found the front door locked and thought her mother had changed the locks out of spite, so she decided to enter through the back door. Hearing their conversation, the collector quickly unlocked several locks on the back door and hid in the corner. After opening the locks, Jill wanted to go upstairs to rest, but Chad couldn't wait and pulled her down. And this move happened to save Jill from danger. Hearing noises downstairs, Arkin quietly came down and saw the collector watching an inappropriate scene. Arkin rushed into the next room, intending to warn Jill and Chad about the danger, but before he could, Jill spotted the collector lurking in the corner. Seeing a stranger in the house, Chad immediately threw a punch, but struck the collector's blade instead. Then, the collector shoved Chad away. After Chad was killed, the collector set his sights on the beautiful Jill, gripping her neck tightly. In this moment of danger, Jill managed to dial the emergency number, but before she could say a word, the collector dragged her away. Arkin wanted to rescue Jill, so he quietly ran upstairs. Just as the collector was about to torture Jill, an alarm clock suddenly went off upstairs. The collector immediately rushed upstairs to check, giving Arkin the perfect chance to save Jill. He kept telling Jill to stay quiet, but after untying the wire around her, Jill mistakenly believed that Arkin was working with the collector. She grabbed a pair of scissors to defend herself. In the next second, she was mercilessly pinned to the wall by a trap. When the collector came back downstairs, he saw Jill nailed to the wall and looked puzzled. Wasn't she just tied up at the stairs? At that moment, he realized someone else was in the house. Meanwhile, Arkin rushed upstairs wanting to free Larry, but found Larry's entire foot nailed to the floor with chains wrapped around his ankle. Realizing he couldn't rescue Larry, Arkin decided to escape alone. He smashed the window he had just unboarded and jumped out. But as he was about to run for help, he looked back and spotted Hannah hiding on the third floor. Downstairs was the ruthless collector, and upstairs was a little girl about the same age as his own daughter. Seeing the collector about to catch Hannah, Arkin wrestled with himself but ultimately decided to go back and rescue her. He rushed back and at the last moment managed to save Hannah. Then they quickly hid in a room. There, Arkin came up with a plan. They each stood in position, and when the collector entered, Arkin would knock over the fish tank while Hannah would push over the TV. They hoped to electrocute the killer this way, but unexpectedly, the one who entered wasn't the collector, it was Larry. The collector then began throwing knives at Arkin, who dodged quickly and led Hannah into the inner room. But this room was also filled with traps, sharp fishhooks hanging everywhere, nearly blinding Arkin. Outside, the collector grew more furious, using Larry's head to smash the door. Seeing that they had nowhere to run, Hannah told Arkin that the laundry chute in the wall could lead downstairs. Hearing this, Arkin quickly helped her down. Hannah successfully escaped, but at that moment, the collector broke through the door and blocked Arkin, engaging him in a fight. In the end, Arkin couldn't escape the collector's clutches. The collector hung Arkin in the basement. To punish him for ruining his plans, the collector first smashed Arkin's teeth, then sliced open his abdomen, roasted the wound with fire, and forced cockroaches inside. By now, Arkin was barely alive. Fortunately, the sound of sirens came from outside. The call Jill made earlier had gone through. Although she didn't speak, the police grew concerned and came to check. But as soon as the officer entered the yard, he saw the collector casually walking out. Seeing this, the officer immediately drew his gun and ordered him to drop his weapon. But in the next second, the officer was attacked by the large guard dog. While the collector was distracted checking on the officer, Arkin seized the opportunity to break free from his restraints. He found Hannah and planned to escape with her, but the collector released the guard dog, letting it track their scent and hunt them down. At the last moment, Arkin lit a fire inside a bucket and slammed it onto the dog's head, then threw the burning bucket toward the collector. Caught off guard, the collector dropped his gun. They immediately fought again. This time, Arkin gave it everything he had. Ignoring the pain in his body, he fiercely attacked the collector, kicking him down the stairs. Arkin picked up a key that had fallen to the floor, but just as Arkin and Hannah were about to escape, they discovered that the key had snapped and couldn't open the door. Seeing their last hope shattered, and with the collector closing in, a desperate Arkin was unsure what to do. But then, an idea struck him. Perhaps he could use the collector to help them escape. Soon, the collector arrived, hunting them down. Seeing Arkin and Hannah huddled together, he immediately fired his gun. Unexpectedly, it was a pane of glass, and behind it was the front door. Seeing this, Arkin quickly triggered a trap, and a chandelier of blades pierced the collector's body. At last, the collector was tasting his own torture. But just as Arkin and Hannah tried to flee, the collector rose again and chased after Arkin. At that moment, a fleet of police cars arrived. Seeing this, Arkin told Hannah to hide to the side, and he ran out alone to intercept the police car. But due to the dark and rainy weather, the officers didn't see him clearly and accidentally hit Arkin with their vehicle. As Arkin lay on the ground, he seemed to see the collector advancing toward Hannah. At the critical moment, it was actually the police who managed to save Hannah. Seeing this, Arkin finally breathed a sigh of relief. Hannah was taken into protective custody by the police, and Arkin was loaded onto an ambulance. Just then, the house exploded violently. Clearly, the collector was trying to destroy the evidence. But on the way to the hospital, the ambulance was suddenly struck hard. After rolling over multiple times, the ambulance landed upside down by the roadside. Before Arkin could react, the collector appeared once again. The paramedic was killed instantly by a single slash. The collector then grabbed Arkin and began to savagely beat him, and no matter how Arkin struggled, it was useless. In the end, Arkin couldn't escape his fate. He was locked inside a trunk, becoming the collector's next prize.